Hello and welcome to the N.E.R.D podcast, a podcast about never-ending ridiculous discussions. This one in particular to gaming. My name is Brian. I am here with my good friend Dom. How are you doing?
Doing good, Brian. How you doing today?
I am one tired dog, my friend, but here we are. We are going to be bringing you some video game news. We're going to be talking about reviews, our impressions, and we're going to discuss all things gaming today. For today's episode, we thought we'd start out on a quick hit of something that is a little bit over more recently. That is big to me as a PC gamer, and that is the Steam Summer Sale. While it may be over, Steam always has good deals, so keep that in mind. Always check in on your Steam app or on the application directly on your computer. Something that I thought was a huge thing that I would want to share with you guys, because it's something that I haven't thought in years about, was a game called Dead Space. And Dom, we talked about this before the show, how Dead Space is kind of an exhilarating franchise right now for a few reasons. One, it's back. You can play it on PC. I believe you can play it on a few console as well as a direct download. But Dom, why don't you since you're my news guy, why don't you take a second to talk to us a little bit about why that's a little bit exciting right now?
Well, the big thing with Dead Space is that it's all pretty much but confirmed. But EA is most likely going to be announcing a new Dead Space at their EA Play and or EA Showcase on July 22nd. So, yeah, that's something that I'm sure you're excited for. Not to mention the people who made the original Dead Space are making another new game that is very much like Dead Space. So, I can't think of that title off the top of my head. It does take place in the universe of that Battle Royale game that is really popular. But you guys are getting two games. I'm sorry. Or right off the top of my head, I can't remember what that game is.
Apex Legends?
No, the other one. The first one.
Fortnite.
No, the other one. The one before that.
PUBG?
There you go. Yeah, it takes place in the PUBG universe.
Ah!
That's an actual thing. But, yeah, so you guys are getting multiple new Dead Space games. So now is a good time to jump into the old ones.
Not to make too much of a side note there, aren't they making a PUBG movie?
I have no idea.
I think they are. Weird enough. Okay, anyways. But one of the reasons why I also wanted to bring up Dead Space for you people out there who may not have started gaming back in the late 2000s when we were in high school and playing video games till our eyeballs bled. Dead Space is a game, it's a survival horror game where you play basically a space engineer with a laser cutting tool who is on a space station infested with a bunch of essentially zombies, if you will, very Resident Evil style, where you basically shoot through them with this laser cutter that has low ammo, shocker, but the shtick of the game is that each weapon dismembers your zombie a little bit different. So some you have to chop off the arms, some you have to, hit it with force, everything kind of dismembers a different way. So your play style has to reflect, what kind of zombie you're versing. So if you haven't played Dead Space before, or you have, and it's about time to hit back and go back to something that brings you back some nostalgia feels, that would be a great one to go to. Another one that was a big thing, Capcom had a big sale on it, was Resident Evil 2 and 3, which we'll talk more here in a second about. I personally bought Hitman 2, which is a game about being a hitman, and the cool part about that is you get to play whatever play style you want. You can be aggro, you can be stealthy, you can be a little bit weird, you can dress up as a clown and garrote somebody into like a box and just hide their body there. You can do that. I got Detroit, which I played on PS4, which I know Dom hates with a burning passion.
I wouldn't say hate, I just don't think it's that great.
He hates it. And I also got an expansion to one of my favorite games, XCOM 2, which adds the expansion in general adds some new story content. But XCOM, turn-based style game, you basically play Space Marines versus aliens. Greatly done. You have different classes. You can move your pawns, if you will, around the board, and you have to strategically take out enemies. There's literally you can have the high ground and have better aiming chances versus, not. So remember the Star Wars meme there at all times. And just in case anybody even cares, I put 108 hours into XCOM 2 alone, and that's not nearly enough in my take. But with that as it may, let's roll right into our next segment that we wanted to talk about, which was kind of piggybacking off the Dead Space there and the Resident Evil, about why we think that retro games being either remastered or remade to the next gen, or now current gen, or however you want to look at it, it's not just a money grab, unless it's Resident Evil 4, in which case, by God, it's a money grab. Brings back, a lot of nostalgia, and it's a great way for new people who may have never played the games to get into it. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Now, Dom, I'm going to throw you a curveball here, and I apologize. But this is the reason why this is cool. I'm actually going to tell you a story. So, I can't remember if I talked about this in the first episode, but I'm a car salesman. And I was working with a couple of clients, and they had tattoos, and they were talking about how they were nerds. And, of course, I asked them, tell me more about that. I kid you not. They had a tattoo with their names, but also like some of their favorite video game characters' names. In this sharing match tattoo between the two of them. And one of them was Liara from Mass Effect. And so Mass Effect is a game. Basically, you play the space marine named Commander Shepard, who, along with this ragtag bunch of Xeno space cowboys, if you will, that's a super bad take, but I liked it, go around the universe trying to save it from a rogue Spectre, basically the space version of the CIA. And it's the first game is a short game. In the Legendary Edition, you have 1, 2, and 3. 1, Dom, I know you laughed when I said this, but I beat that, I think, now 14 times. How many times have you beaten the first one?
I don't think I even finished the first one, gonna be honest.
What?
Mako, man.
Dude, you power through it, quite literally. Anyways, back onto my sentimental trip, which, fun fact, Mass Effect back in 2000, I want to say 7 or 8, when it came out, overtook, and you'll consider it a sacrilege, Ocarina of Time as my favorite game of all time.
That is sacrilege.
Yeah, I especially in a game you didn't finish, but, hey, it's awesome. 2, widely renowned as one of the best RPGs, role-playing games of all time, because it updated the shooting mechanics, updated the power usage, and also kind of brought in a very memorable final mission. Without spoiling it, basically, even in the first couple of minutes, they just talk about it being a suicide mission. What you're trying to do is a suicide mission. So it isn't really a spoiler to say it's a suicide mission, but what happens during it basically is a culmination of all your choices through mostly the second game. Did you finish that one, Dom, or even play it?
Yes, I did. For record, I played 2, 3, and then Andromeda.
Yeah, boy.
I just haven't played the Legendary Edition. And fun fact, you want to know which one of those games I've played more than once?
3.
Andromeda.
I've beaten Andromeda 4 times? No, 3 times.
Really? You liked it that much?
Oh God, yeah. It's my favorite out of the 4 games. It's probably my favorite. 1 is amazing because it's just such a pure BioWare RPG, but Andromeda, just the next gen graphics for, especially when it came out, were so beautiful, especially on PC. I think it did the powers right, and I think it did the RPG elements right, because instead of having this is a good option, this is the bad option, this is the I don't give a what option, it gave different, like, this is the angry option, this is the lighthearted option, this is the analytical option. And I thought I did that well. Aside from all the bugs, the weird character animations at times, I thought it was pretty solid.
It definitely came out at a rough time, which is the only reason I actually played it twice, is because it came out like it was a 3-week in a row kind of situation with Horizon Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild, and then I think Mass Effect Andromeda came out third. And obviously, we know how Horizon and Breath of the Wild turned out. And Andromeda at first, like you mentioned, it was really buggy. And that's actually when I played it the first time. Actually, the only reason I went back to it the second time is after the patches. And personally, it's, in my opinion, the weakest of all the ones I've played. I wasn't crazy about it. But to carry on with talking about these games.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we go back and play them, right? Like, I think a lot of people could have played Andromeda. That came out when I was in college. And no, it didn't actually. Now that I think about it, that came out after I was in college. And, you can go back and just be like, oh, hey, this was kind of cool, but maybe it wasn't the best thing you've ever played. And then you don't get a chance to go back to one because it's on, 360, not Xbox or PlayStation 4 or whatever. And you just kind of let it lay there, and you have now these opportunities with the Legendary Edition to kind of go back and do it. Two other ones I wanted to touch on that aren't new but have been out for a while is Fable, which got like a PC remake. I think it got on console too. And Fable is this kind of like fairy tale-esque kind of fantasy role-playing game where you have a title, but mostly you start out as Chicken Chaser. And you kind of just grow into this hero. The whole world's about becoming this hero. There's these different pantheons of heroes within the game who have essentially risen to power. So think kind of a British Avengers, except instead of Bruce Banner being the Hulk, you just shoot fireballs from your hands. And if you're evil, you grow horns out of your face. And if you're good, you get gray hair in your 30s and gain a halo. Also, another game to note, Mafia. Mafia had a remake recently. Never played the series. It's like a 1920s GTA, essentially. Really good, great voice acting. Basically just a really great play. It wasn't anything outstanding. I would give it a 7.5 out of 10, but it was just fun for what it was, and I had a great time. Now, one that you may or may not be totally crazy about, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Never beat the first one because I was too stupid as a young kid to figure out a Final Fantasy game and how to move forward. But the remake, super fun, not the typical turn-based mechanics. And you just kind of run through it. You can get new swords and they actually look different. You can use different types of magics. You can just kind of go around and, with Barrett, Tifa, is it Ariel? Am I right on that? Or am I having a stroke, Dom?
Oh, God. I should know this. I literally just played that game.
The girl in the pink dress with the red jacket, that is like Cloud's half love interest, which I don't know if it was this way in the original game, but that guy's got some serious issues with how many love interests he has in that game. But I digress. That's a great play. Brings back a lot of memories. Final Fantasy VII came out back in, I think, 97 or 98. So it's been a hot minute. One thing that we both want to talk about, because you could just pop off on this, so could I, is Resident Evil 2 and 3. Resident Evil is a horror shooting game. Basically, it used to be a third-person game where it had a fixed camera, and you just kind of walked around, and then stuff kind of popped out at you, and you had the jump scare and ammo scares, and you kind of had to awkwardly aim, and it just wasn't the best mechanics, but it's best the PS1 back in the 90s could do. Now, with the power of, 4K and all these fancy schmancy graphics cards, we can do a lot better. And Resident Evil 2 and 3 have recently got a remake. Both have to deal with the Raccoon City incident, which is the original zombie outbreak. And I think we've both beaten them, correct, Dom?
Yes.
And they take a lot after Resident Evil 4, which has a item system where you can only have so many items in your attaché case or in your backpack, and you basically have to just be smart about what zombies you decide to dome and which ones you don't, because a zombie frog might be lurking in the sewer and need a nice handy dandy grenade launcher to hit it right in the noggin. But those were extremely fun. I got to live a series that I wasn't allowed to play when I was growing up with the PS1, and because I think I was like 8, but I I think you mentioned in the pre-show talk that you kind of feel the same way, that it just kind of was cool to see, like, in this next gen world, the Raccoon City incident happen again.
Oh yeah, of all the games that get into this remaster, remake, reimagining, I guess you can say reboot as well category, um, I would declare Resident Evil 2 is the best one, period. I think it did. Obviously, taking the original 10 controls from the, I believe it's 1999 release of the second Resident Evil. Actually, I think it's 98 of the second Resident Evil, and then completely revamping it to the way it is. I'm not a Resident Evil guy. I'm gonna be honest here. I never really got into this franchise. I played 4. Everyone has played 4. You know, it's been released on everything. But
Almost quite literally.
almost quite literally, there's a VR version coming out. It's insane.
Oh boy.
But 2 is a game that I don't know why, but it was on sale once, and I went, hey, you know what? It's like $20. I'm gonna pick it up.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, and I don't know if you had this experience either, but I bought all the DLC that like was available for it. Not the costumes.
I did
or
not
anything.
do that.
Oh, I did. I did the DLC to unlock all the guns. I've played that game like 5 different times. I think it was just in a row. Normally, I play a lot of games. I try to play like something on my Switch, something on my PlayStation, maybe something on my Xbox. You know, I try to juggle a lot. This is one of those games where I played all 3, and then Resident Evil, or just Resident Evil 2, and then like I bought 3 day 1. I like pre-ordered it the second I could. And I think 2 was already out at that point, so or 3 was already announced at that point. So like I paid full price for Resident Evil 3, which, by the way, should not have been $60. That is a conversation on its own. But I was lucky that I only paid $80, total for both games. And 2 specifically, though, is just, I think it's phenomenal. I think it did the premise better than Final Fantasy did. I know we have Link's Awakening on this list, too. I'm sure we'll get there. But I think it did way better than anything Nintendo has done with their remakes. I dare anyone to find a better remake or remaster than Resident Evil 2. I honestly just don't think anyone can.
I agree with that fully. I mean, the Japanese, I wholeheartedly mean this, the Japanese introduced how to make a game, really. I mean, back in the 90s, it's all out of Japan. I mean, the PlayStation, the Nintendo, whatever you want there. I mean, there's multiple consoles at that point. You had the SNES, you had the NES. They were this spearhead. I mean, we made Pong, I believe. America made Pong. And these guys are pumping out these great games: Final Fantasy VII, Resident Evil 2, 3, Retro. And now you can go back, and these studios with all this technology just make gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous games. And it's different because the world's a lot different. Western games feel a little bit different than Eastern, Japanese games, but it's just still so fun. And it takes me back to being on this old, semi-uncomfortable couch in my parents' basement. It was this gold and black couch. And on this standard def TV, just having, my PlayStation plugged into it and trying to play Final Fantasy VII and not getting farther than the first 3 hours because I had no idea where the hell to go. But it's just nice to have the nostalgia back. It just is.
Also, I take back everything I said about Resident Evil 2. I completely forgot about Metroid Zero Mission. Metroid Zero Mission is number 1. At me.
That's just your bias showing.
I totally forgot about that game. And that game came out in 2004. And that was the remake of the first NES Metroid game. And I've been on a Metroid kick lately, obviously with the announcement of Dread. Been watching like a lot of YouTube videos. And I know you're not crazy about Nintendo, but if you ever get a chance to play Zero Mission, or if you like side-scroller Metroidvanias, Zero Mission is up there. If it's not as good as Resident Evil 2 remake, it's like right under it. You know, it is a fantastic remake of the original game.
Oh, without a doubt, and the reason why we're bringing any of this up is just because, hey, you don't have to take our nostalgia and our reliving these wonder years of gaming here as like, oh, hey, like these are the only good games out there. We're just telling you, hey, these are things we liked. Give it a shot. You might love it too. You might find something that we thoroughly enjoyed and just be like, oh crap, you know what? They're right. Dom and Brian are right. This game is awesome. And then you just kind of start falling down that magical rabbit hole of being a nerd here on the Nerd podcast about gaming. And, just we're doing this to have a fun time. You as a listener, you make a lot of money. You make a little money. You like the game? Cool. You still want to spend your money on something you like, or maybe you want to just take a gamble on, and we're here to give you a little bit of information and a couple of new ideas.
Nothing's wrong with going deep down in that big sales bin. I regularly do that. I just bought Okami HD for $9.99 on the Switch. It was also $9.99 on PlayStation and probably Xbox as well. And I had never played that game before. And that game came out in, I don't know, again, 2004-ish. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say it's quickly becoming one of my favorite games, but I wish I would have played it back in the day, because I know I would have been obsessed with it. So, don't scoff at it. Whether you're as old as us and, you were a teenager when a lot of these games came out, or maybe you were 16, 17 right now, definitely dig down and look at these old classics, whether it's something like Okami or it's a Zelda game. If you've never played a Mass Effect before, jump into the Legendary Edition, where you can pick it up for $59.99. You get all three of them, and then you can get Andromeda for probably 99 cents at this point. So yeah, it's definitely worth it. Not every game needs to be $69.99 brand new. We can dig down, get some old things. Some of them play just as good as today's game, if not better.
Oh, you're 100% right. And I just pulled up my Steam. You probably heard my keyboard clacking a little bit, and they're back. Resident Evil 2, $16. Resident Evil 3, just about $20. And I'll even make this bold statement. If we get to 100 listeners, I'll start a once-a-month giveaway where I'll give away a retro game under $20 to a lucky listener. Let's get to 100 listeners, people. Let's get there. Let's get this gravy train of prizes rolling and have some fun. But, yeah, I mean, retro games, you can love them, you can hate them. I can go back into a lot of old games that I loved and just be like, I can't touch this anymore. The controls suck. Which is really you with the Mako in Mass Effect. Or I go back into, for me, candidly, how I go into Mass Effect is, all right, this is exactly what I thought. And then I play it 14 times because I'm a sadist, I guess, or I just really like the game. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I got there, Dom. Do you have anything else to add?
I would say that next episode, be ready for me to deep dive into the Skyward Sword HD, as that comes out next Friday. And this will be my second time playing Skyward Sword. I only played it the first time on the Wii back in its original release. So this is the only Zelda game I've only played once. I'm sure if you know anything about Skyward Sword, it's a little divisive, but I am looking forward to just to continue this, to jump back into a game that I've played a long time ago and see what it's like by today's standards.
Will you be able to, since we're about on a monthly schedule here, Dom, and I'm kind of asking this for the listeners, do you think you'll be able to give us a review by the next episode?
Oh, absolutely. Being the fact I've already played it before, I kind of know where the game is going. Most of the quality of life improvements, I mean, I'm going to know if they make it better within the first couple hours. So I could definitely give a pretty solid review. and just base it off both my experiences playing that game. So worst case scenario, if we're not able to do an episode together, I can just do, like I did with episode 2, I can just do a one-off rant of my review of Skyward Sword.
Rant away, big boy. Yeah, that's all I got on the kind of retro games aspect there. Dom, I knew you had some news for us. Why don't you take it away?
All right. So, I don't know about you guys, but this week started pretty decently for me. You know, Monday, we had Monday off. I was able to, have a nice
Monday off.
I had Monday off.
worked.
Work for the banking industry. You get nice holidays randomly. I had a good Monday off after a great weekend celebrating the 4th of July. I actually didn't play any video games. I had a really busy weekend. But Tuesday morning, I open up my Twitter and I see it. I see the red Nintendo logo and I get excited. Because every time Nintendo randomly announces something, it's usually pretty cool. We got a random Paper Mario game. Is it a Direct? No, it's a new Switch model, which is something that has been rumored for the last 3 years, which has always been this rumored Switch Pro. And I see the big letters, the Switch OLED, and it's new. It's a new regular Switch. It's not a Lite, but it's a regular Switch. It's got a bigger screen, about 0.8 inches larger. It's a better screen. Obviously, it's an OLED, hence the name. It's got a bigger stand. Stand has definitely been an issue. Bigger speakers that are actually in the front of the unit, not in the back. I don't know why they put them in the back in the original units, but they did. It has a LAN cable support in the dock, which Super Smash Bros. Players are going to love that. And that's where the news ends. Other than that, it's white now. It's $350, and it comes out day 1 with Metroid Dread on October 8th, 2021. So, Brian, you're probably wondering, Dominic, why are you selling this thing so much for disappointment? That all sounds awesome. Well, Brian, let me tell you, the internet is mad. Nintendo fans are mad, and I am pretty disappointed.
Why?
Well, all Nintendo Switch owners, and I shouldn't say all, the vast majority of people who play the Switch, obviously it's a very mainstream unit, aren't really going to be, disappointed by this. They're going to look at it and go, oh, this is an awesome thing. It's got a bigger screen, better stand, better speakers. It's OLED now. And this unit, it's already sold out. You can't pre-order it anywhere. So it's doing great for Nintendo. And I've seen a lot of people excited about this. But the problem is that the hardcore Nintendo fans, the people like me who have had the Switch day 1 since 2017 and now own next-gen consoles and are seeing what the Xbox Series S can offer at a cheaper price at $300. This is really this is really disappointing that there are no internal improvements to the unit. It's still going to have the exact same output. It's still going to have the exact same performance and frame rates and everything. The Joy-Cons, which have regularly had problems with drifting, are the exact same units with the exact same parts since 2017. And I think overall, the internet is just pretty disappointed. Nintendo offered a new unit that has a lot of really great improvements. Don't get me wrong, all of these things are really good, and it looks really good white. I will say that. But the fact that this unit, if you notice, Brian, all the improvements are for the handheld. Besides the LAN cable, none of this benefits those of us who have a Switch that's pretty much permanently docked for the TV unit. And that's kind of what everyone is, well, those who really care, the hardcore Nintendo fans, are kind of upset about. And again, also me, I'm a little disappointed that the one thing I honestly really wanted from a new Switch model wasn't an OLED screen. It wasn't a better stand. I mean, granted, that's nice. It wasn't really any of that. All I wanted was just a more powerful Switch that would let me play Breath of the Wild without heavy frame rate dips. I didn't even really care about 4K. I just wanted to be able to push these games as close to 60 as possible, and that's pretty much it. And the fact that they went the complete opposite direction had really upset a lot of people, especially being the fact that the rumors for the last 2 years have been we're getting a more powerful unit with better performance, 4K ability, and that's just not what we got. Now, Brian, I know
Well,
you're not really a Nintendo fan, but giving
yeah.
this giving this news, as somebody who doesn't own a Switch, does this entice you at all?
Well, now correct me if I'm wrong. In IRL, have we talked about? I was thinking about getting a Switch for my trip in October.
You have not.
So I'm going on a big trip in October. I'm gonna be in an airport, and I thought to myself, "Well, Brian, this would be a great time to get a Switch." So I thought about it. You just put me off it in general because I didn't know that the current Switch had that bad a dip in frame rate. Now, I will tell you this: as a PC gamer, did they with the OLED? Did you say that they added 4K?
No.
They did not. Okay, so this is interesting because as a PC gamer, I know that the higher resolution you push, especially into the 4K, you need a pretty beefy rig in terms of it can't probably fit in a handheld, or if it did, it would be too expensive. And I wonder if that's just Nintendo's MO right now is just say, hey, we're going to be a handheld console that people use on a basis. Now, will I still get one? Probably at some point. If I can get my hands on a normal Switch for like $200, sure, I'll buy one. But the heavy frame rates in terms of the dipping and probably some chugging don't really entice me. But with the improvements, I think it's a $50 difference, right? As well as the color.
Yeah, it's a $50 difference between the standard Switch, and for record, the Switch Lite, so the just handheld one, is $199. So that's just a $200 version. You can't dock it though, and then the standard Switch is $300, and then this one is $50 more, and essentially you get the better screen, better stand, better speakers, and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, they need to do something with maybe the dock and use that as a mini tower. And so that just as you used to be able to play PlayStation, I think it was 3, not 4 games on a PlayStation Vita, you'd be able to play that on the handheld where it just scales it back and then you dock it, and just as I can flip through some menus in my computer games and just put from graphic quality from medium to high, just do that and just bring beauty back to Nintendo. Because you've been a Nintendo homeboy for years and years and years, decades, and I phased out around Halo and like really when the Wii came out. Let's be real, it was when the Wii came out, because as cool as the nunchucks were, boy was that an awkward way to play a hardcore game. And with this, it just kind of goes back to more of the same for me. We talk off air about why I just don't give a damn about Nintendo anymore, and this just kind of falls into it. Like, I was hoping that even with the corny name of the Switch OLED, which is why I laughed earlier, it's just not, we talk about, moving the radar, which could be our, catchphrase. It doesn't move the radar. It doesn't move the needle. I don't, $50 more, I'd just buy I would buy it if it's only $50 more. It's like, okay, it's on a better screen, cool. But it doesn't have a whole lot of value, but only at $50 it really devalues the first Switch if you think about it. Because why buy, I look at something, why buy something for $300 when I can get just a slightly better one for $350? I'm already spending money, which as a car salesman I tell people this all the time. Hey, you're wanting that moonroof, hey, you're wanting that power liftgate. Well, it all costs money, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're spending $29,000, you can spend $30,000 and be happier when you take out that 5-year loan, And so I can spend an extra 50 and just be like, all right, I like this. But with the lack of aggressiveness towards this. It also makes me worried. If I buy this, will they just come out with another one that's 4K or 2K at least? So I don't know. The radar not moved. Is it going to be in my backpack on my flight? Probably not.
And the thing is, Brian, is that you're absolutely right. And to comment on like two things that you mentioned, which is kind of the conclusion of this story, is that Nintendo, I think, clearly sees the Switch and the handheld market first, which is probably why the OLED is so handheld focused. There are no dock updates for this thing. And then obviously I agree with you. A lot of the rumors was it was going to be able to do 4K. Personally, I didn't believe it in the first place, but I was pretty confident that a new Switch was going to come out with an updated chip. But beyond that, I think the second statement is that I think you are correct that if anyone knows Nintendo, and if you know the DS and how many different DS versions there were, and how many
good
different,
God.
yeah, and how many different 3DS versions there were, this is already the third Switch iteration. And a lot of people don't know that, but it is the third, with the Lite, the revamped battery version, and now the OLED. I would not be surprised if next year, or maybe 2 years from now, we do get a Switch. I would say maybe a Switch 2, a Switch Plus, Switch Enhanced, new Nintendo Switch. Don't put them off
Switch
of
it
that
up.
name. Yeah. Oh God. A Super Switch, which I would love. Like, as corny as that would be, that'd be a perfect name. I would not be surprised. This all kind of boils down to this product is clearly for a certain market, and it's the market that actually buys the Switch, which is honestly makes up the majority. The majority of people who own a Switch are kids or people who are like, well, that's nice, but I don't have a 4K TV anyway. So I really don't blame Nintendo for doing this. It is disappointing. I think it's just the one factor that would have made this a hit with everybody and not just one market. But there's obviously something we don't know. We're not Nintendo. We don't work there. Our uncles don't work there. But that's pretty much the end of this story. There's a new Switch model, and if you're excited about it, buy it. Welcome to the Switch family if you don't already own one. Brian, you definitely should get a Switch. Maybe not this one.
I will at some point.
Yeah, you could get a Switch Lite, $200, if you have no interest in putting it on the TV.
That's the thing. I would dock it.
Oh, then either this one or the regular one.
We'll see, my friend. But that's whenever there's a new console out, we definitely want to talk about it. We definitely want to give you our original takes because we're just like you guys. We're just average Joes. We want to bring the news to the people and just be like, hey, is this fancy as everybody's saying it is? And seems like the verdict is in that it's not, but we'll find out. Another big thing that happened this week is PlayStation State of Play. Now, I've put in a lot of hours into my job lately. So, Dom, you are my spearhead on this one. Tell me all about this PlayStation State of Play, which apparently was definitely not what we were hoping for after E3.
Oh, yes. This, right off the bat, Sony announced the State of Play, I think the same day the Switch came out, the Switch OLED news came out. It was definitely a hectic week. And they said right off the bat in the PlayStation blog, hey, Horizon, God of War, VR2 is not going to be there. And they set expectations. So walking in, we knew that we were going to get footage on Deathloop and then third-party studios. So, and of course, everyone started going nuts. My big prediction for the State of Play, ultimately, we didn't have an episode come out in time to really say what we thought was going to happen. But my big prediction was we're probably going to get like an update on Resident Evil 2 and 3 or something, and the internet went crazy too. But ultimately, let's run through the announcements really fast. It started off with a VR game called Moss Book 2. You're like a cute little rabbit. It actually looks kind of cool, so if you have PSVR, it's probably worth checking out. They moved on to Arcade-Ageddon. which there is no explanation on this website that I'm looking for summary of. So I think that says something. The next one was Hunter's Arena, a 30-player melee-focused fantasy battle royale game. They followed it up with Fist, Forged in Shadow Torch, which is actually this really cool Metroidvania side-scroller kind of game. You're like a rabbit, and you have a giant mechanical fist. It's pretty straightforward, but it looks really cool. I actually believe it's made by a Chinese developer, so we're repping a lot of video games from China, a lot of really good ones looking coming out. They followed that up with Sifu, which that's a game that got revealed at a previous State of Play. It's like a John Wick kind of kung fu game. I believe it is a roguelike because the mechanic is every time you fall, your character gets older. So they show the character being punched and falling to the ground, and then it'll say age 24, and then it increases to 32, and then it goes out throughout the entire trailer. And it's really cool. It's super interesting for those. I love roguelike games, and I love Kung Fu, so this just seems like a great game. Unfortunately, though, the end of the trailer announced that the game is now delayed from late 2021 to early 2022. So that's some disappointing news. However, Sifu does look awesome. And then the last few announcements they had was Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the Hanokani Chronicle. I'm sorry for butchering that. Brian, I know you're a Demon Slayer fan. Did you know about this game?
I did not. The one split second I had to even look at this, I caught the tail end of it. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I love Demon Slayer. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you have another anime game to play.
Yeah, boy.
Followed it up with Death Stranding Director's Cut. Gave some kind of updates of what the game has. It has a brand new battle system. It's got a couple more delivery options, and then it looks like just some more story stuff, things like that. And then finally, they did a 9-minute breakdown on Deathloop, which looks really cool. I love Arcane Studios. I recently played, and I actually am playing Death of the Outsider right now for the first time, but I've been playing through every single game Arcane has made. So Deathloop is, in my opinion, an awesome looking game, and I'm really looking forward to it. So beyond that, that was the state of play. So there really was no big new announcements. All of these games, like Fist, Sifu, Death Stranding, Deathloop, we knew about all of them. Sifu getting delayed was kind of a big punch in the gut. And then other than that, Death Stranding is definitely I don't know if you would agree with this, but that's definitely a game that is for an acquired taste. And then I would say same with Deathloop. You know, Arcane is, I could go on and on about how brilliant Arcane is. I really do think they're one of the best developers right now. But a lot of people tend to avoid Arcane Studios, or they just don't pick up Dishonored or Prey. But it's definitely a studio to check out. And if you have a PS5, you know, check out Deathloop. And I hope you're not sick of seeing it, because this is like the 4th state of play it's been a part of. But definitely check it out. But other than that, Brian, do any of these games really tickle your fancy?
No, however, well, kind of with the, Demon Slayer one. But you left out one, and I had to Google it while you were talking, because I caught the tail end of this one too while I was working. And it's called Lost Judgment. And I thought it was a Yakuza game. And I guess it's a Yakuza spin-off game, which, with people unfamiliar, I know Yakuza obviously is the Japanese version of the Mafia or the mob. Well, Yakuza is essentially, in the game called Yakuza, basically like a GTA, but really goofy. And I was really taken by how bad the lip syncing was to the characters, with the English voices coming out of their clearly Japanese lips that were moving. And I'm like, oh God, whoever really needed to do this did not a great job. But it looked interesting. It looked great. It's got kind of this total like let's have fun with this Japanese flair to it, and I was all about giving it a shot. So if I can find this puppy on sale, I don't think I'm gonna throw a full $60 or $70 at it. I will totally get that game. But you know, out of everything else, I mean, this is eerily reminiscent of an E3. I won't be able to say the year, but is when the motion controls came out for the PlayStation, and PlayStation got their stick up there, you know what, of like, hey, we need to have children friendly games. Like, imagine Harry Potter and you're just waving around this motion control, and you know, you can do a Wingardium Leviosa or Leviosa and do, you know, magic and play other games. And as a hardcore gamer, you're just looking at it and you're like, bring me the cool stuff. Give me the new God of War, bro. And you're just like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I feel forgotten about. And for now 2 years in a row, 3 years maybe, if you count pre PS5 E3, you just feel like Sony's just regurgitating stuff, or, you know, doesn't have a whole lot in the chamber right now, and they're buying up studios. I know there was a rumor that they were going to buy Epic Games in this blockbuster, you know, move to get them into the PC space and to bring a whole bunch of games to their platforms. But, you know, it's just not good. You know, I want to see a reason for me to buy a PS5. You know, Horizon's going to be it, but I'm not going to buy one before then. And it surely hasn't shown up. But that's me. I'm not like everybody else. You know, it's whatever moves the needle, if you will. But another big news for you Assassin's Creed fans, one of the other franchises out there aside from the Call of Duties or Battlefield or whatever, really, that gets almost every other year, a new game. Assassin's Creed made some slightly, well, how can we say this slightly? Divisive plans, essentially, for the next Assassin's Creed. Dom, again, since you are the lucky one and work less than I do, take it away, because I have no idea outside of what I read really quick and what you told me. So
yes, it's Ubisoft announced on the 7th this week that they are taking Assassin's Creed in a new direction, and essentially they are going to make a a live action Assassin's Creed game. Or live service Assassin's Creed game. So basically, yeah,
Sorry.
that good impression. You know, were you a guy being assassinated, or were you the franchise?
I was vomiting in my own mouth because everything is going to this live service BS. But go on.
Yeah. So, long story short, it's just starting development. It's codenamed right now Assassin's Creed Infinity. So basically the game plan is something kind of very similar to Avengers, is probably the best way to put it. To kind of summarize a long story, it sounds like you're basically going to be looking at an Assassin's Creed service that you're going to buy into, and every couple, you know, months there's going to be new content, and instead of every single year, you know, getting a now $70 game, you're going to be getting just this service. So the reason why, like, and you and me aren't really Assassin's Creed fans. I've only played a few of them. Not really.
I've gotten back into it.
You have.
Yes, I have played Origins. I've played Odyssey, and I've played Valhalla. Recently.
Okay. So I've played Origins and Odyssey recently. I didn't play Valhalla.
Great games.
Very good games. I do have a big nitpick. I believe it's Odyssey, where there's a point in the game where it makes you level up, and you are like, you have to grind essentially at that point. And that's where I dropped off. That game pretty much just shut the door in my face at that point.
You gotta learn to cheese it, man. That's what I did in Valhalla. I couldn't kill a guy, and so I just sniped him with arrows to the face and ran around till my health revived, and it took me a solid hour to get him, but you can get there. You can get there.
But I think the announcement of this project, is kind of why I want to talk. It's almost like a separate discussion, which is why I really wanted to talk about it. Because I know originally when I brought this up, you were kind of like, I don't know if it's worth talking about. But the reason why I really wanted to talk about it is if this game does well, or if it does not very well. Because you have to imagine that Assassin's Creed is pretty much the number one best-selling action, third-person action game franchise. It's
By sheer volume of game, though. But yes.
Oh yeah, but yeah, obviously it's almost, well, it's biannually now, right? We don't get them annually anymore.
Right.
But it's a household name. It's mainstream. It's arguably almost as popular as Call of Duty. I'd say it's probably pretty close. I know it's getting its second live action movie now. I know Netflix is doing something. So that being said, like with how much of a juggernaut Assassin's Creed is, I have to imagine that if this game comes out and it does well, you're going to be looking at more games like this. And the Assassin's Creed template is arguably probably my favorite game. I love third-person action games, action RPGs. Like, as something a little bit more simpler like Zelda, there's something open world and complicated like Ghost of Tsushima and Assassin's Creed. I do love this genre. It is absolutely my favorite. And that kind of scares me a little bit. That if this game does really well, are more games going to take after this? And I like live service games. I played Destiny. I played Outriders. I had a good time with them. But for me, it's I play them till I finish what's there, and then I move on, and I rarely come back. And most of the time, I'm usually a little disappointed, and I wish the game was just a little bit, not live service. So this is kind of like a little scary for me because I don't want my favorite genre to just kind of take a turn. And not that I want this game to do bad. I don't wish them ill will. Like, I hope it comes out and does well enough that the employees, can keep their jobs and, get a paycheck. But
crash and burn, baby.
Yeah, I don't wish that at all. I'd never wish ill will on any video game, even if it's the opposite of what I want. But this does kind of scare me. Like, do you think, like, if this game comes out and they do it well, do you think it even has a chance to do it well? What do you think the repercussions are going to be?
Well, let's just even take the name and the branding and who it's by out of it. Let's just say X game gets made. It's a live service game, makes it off of a popular IP, switches gears, and then does well, and that's how they do it. I was thinking this the other day without getting into a huge rabbit hole because we got, 7 minutes left. I was thinking about this other day with Destiny. It's like I missed Destiny 1 where you had these huge chunks of expansion, or just in any game. It used to be, oh man, I can't wait till the expansion pack comes out. I can't wait till the expansion pack comes out. And then now you have these live service things, which is, as a gamer, can be really great, right? It's like, oh, hey, this is keeping me fresh. This is keeping me in the game. But it also has opened the door to like microtransactions. And as somebody who's recently started playing a certain mobile game, Bleach Immortal Souls, and put a little bit more money into it than he should have, it's under $50, but I still see the investment. I look at it and I'm like, all right, I can do that with one mobile game that I play on the daily because I work a crap ton. What am I going to do if a game I really like, even with Destiny 2, starts pushing, not pay to play, but just other things onto me? How much can I take? And if this takes off, what else is going to follow? Like, will God of War have like a live service thing to it? That's a single player game, not a multiplayer game too. But if it's like, oh, hey, this, now you have like dungeons that you can go through or whatnot. Now, if it was how the Telltale games are and you have episodic content, that'd be cool. I think episodic content is totally underrated. And we all want everything now. And I remember playing the Left 4 Dead franchise, or not Left 4 Dead, zombie franchise, Dom. Super popular. I'm having a brain fart.
Resident Evil.
Walking Dead.
There you go. Sorry.
I made it. Anyways, like with that, it's like, oh my god, I need to see what happened next, and that was awesome, and that was so underrated now. But I'm not looking forward to it. I think it could set a bad precedent for the rest of the gaming world. Because there's nothing stopping them from giving out less content in the beginning to get people hooked, to have a lower, like no crunch, which is great for the people, but making the game. But, I'm going to buy a $60 game that I'm going to have to buy seasonal passes to, probably, and spend more money and more money and more money and more money, when I would much rather personally have expansions. I'd much rather have just different things that add on to the game. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I wish, I know you kind of heard on it, but this just emphasizes how great Game Pass is. Just to come back and swing around to episode 1. But, like, if this game does come out, it is going to be season pass after season pass. And I don't know about you, but I like games like Miles Morales. Ghost of Tsushima just announced the Iki Island expansion. And I just, personally, I'd rather have more games that are just shorter and less money. I think $70 is too much. This is a conversation I'd love to have on, like, the next episode.
For sure.
But, like, video games are too expensive, For somebody like you and me, we have pretty decent incomes, and we could afford a lot of these games, but, we can't afford all of them, let alone the time.
No.
But that's kind of like...
Definitely
that's
not
like
the time.
oh, yeah, definitely not. But that's kind of my quick 2 cents.
All right. Well, we are almost to the hour mark, so that means we are in the wrap-up phase, folks, of our show today. Don't worry, we will be back, hopefully in about another 3 weeks to a month there. That is kind of our show timeline right now. But Dom, quick hits, what are you playing right now?
As of right now, oh god, I just wrote that down. Right now, I'm playing Okami HD on my Switch, Jedi Fallen Order on my PlayStation 5, Mario Golf on my Switch, and on my Xbox, I just started Dishonored: Death of the Outsider.
Quick hit, if I was to pick one of those games to buy right now, which one and why?
Oh my god, Jedi Fallen Order. It's Star Wars, and despite being EA, it's Respawn, and Respawn is perfect, in my opinion. I don't think they've ever made a bad game.
Fair enough. That is a good game. I've played it, beaten it. It's fun. It's a good story. Personally, I've been playing a bunch of Destiny 2, as I talked about hating live service games. I needed something to play when I get off work and play as I go, so Destiny 2 kind of fit that, and I've been playing Outriders, which I believe the studio is called People Can Fly. And
yes.
Holy Moses, is that an interesting game? Their first shot at it didn't hit it out of the park, but the world's cool, and they can build off that puppy in so many ways. I really hope it doesn't turn to full-blown live service with seasons. I want to see expansions. I want to see, additional post-game content, that just draws me in. But even with the bug fixes, I'm more just leaning Destiny 2. But folks, that is our show today. Thank you for listening. Again, we are the N.E.R.D Gaming Podcast, a podcast about never-ending ridiculous discussions. This one about gaming. I am your host, Brian Achenbach, and here with Dom Spazzeri, we are out of here. Get nerdy.
Nerd out. Thank you for listening to the N.E.R.D Gaming Podcast. If you like what you heard and you would like to support us with our other shows, you can check out the N.E.R.D Film and TV Podcast, where we talk about our favorite TV shows and films currently on streaming services as well as in theaters. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and Twitter at N.E.R.D Podcasts.